Thank you so much. And I'm Julie Bates. I also want to introduce our executive director who is on the line, Deborah Olson. You want to give everybody a wave? And then also, I'm going to turn it over now to Sarah Conley, who is our conservation coordinator, and she is going to tell you a little bit more about our speakers.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are very excited today about today's conservation chat. We are joined by two leaders from the CLZ and Department of National Parks and Wildlife K9 Detection and Tracking Dog Unit with Conservation Lower Zambezi, like I said. This program is a joint venture with CLZ and the Zambian Department of National Parks and Wildlife. We have Mike Hensman. Mike is the founder and director of operations of Resolve Wildlife and has vast experience establishing, training, and equipping specialized conservation law enforcement teams from diverse multicultural backgrounds across the whole of Africa, with a specific focus on canines. In 2016, Mike worked with CLZ to establish the K9 Unit. This unit's success has inspired the first of its kind village dog program funded by IEF that is developing local puppies from nearby villages into conservation dogs with the hope that they'll have better immunity to local diseases, be more tolerant of the climate, and more. So we're going to hear a lot more about that. We're also joined by Adamson Phiri. He began as a community scout with the Kiowa Community Resource Board in 2008, and he was involved in wildlife protection patrols. So he has some vast experience with boots on the ground conservation. He joined CLZ in 2016 and eventually became a dog handler with this K9 unit, and in 2020 became a wildlife protection officer with the Department of National Parks and Wildlife. So he's kind of a big deal. He is also the head trainer at this K9 unit, and his excellent skills in training and dog behavior have made him integral to the new village dog program that we'll be discussing, spending the last 7 months with these new puppies, working to establish a bond, training, and overall this groundbreaking program. So we are so happy to have both of them here today. Welcome, Adamson and Mike. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks very much for having us. And honestly, it's an honor to have been invited, and we're really grateful for the opportunity. So thank you guys very much.
So would you guys want to introduce yourselves a little bit and talk about the program, or do you want to go right into the video that you prepared?
I think let's start with the video, and I think it just gives a sort of holistic perspective of the whole program and a nice introduction, and then we'll crack on from there.
Wonderful.
Good boy.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that gives everyone a really great overview of the program, but maybe you can tell us more about the background, how it started, and then kind of we can segue into questions and stuff after that.
Yeah, great. So I think to begin with, it's kind of important to understand that we're trying to look at this conservation thing in a much more holistic way. Obviously, wildlife crime is a huge business, and it's dangerous and involves international criminal networks, and it's a real threat that's constantly changing and evolving. And by its nature, it's difficult to get realistic figures, but the wildlife trade is arguably one of the largest illegal trades in the world. So to compound the problem, conservation in the African context is also plagued by economic, political, and social challenges. And the conservation sector doesn't have a lot of resource available to combat this. So in order to protect these wild spaces, we need to continue developing our own capabilities, and it requires a very integrated approach and an innovative mindset. And I think that that's where we're going to with this puppy program. But it's also important to tackle these sort of problems at a landscape scale to preserve biodiversity and the obvious broader value that it has for things like climate change, which are obviously hot topics. So our mission as Resolve Wildlife has been to develop long-term relationships to support partners like Conservation Lower Zambezi and the Department of National Parks and Wildlife in the Zambezi region to unpick these complex problems and develop sustainable systems that by design, build local capacity and endure within each unique situation. So in the context of Lower Zambezi National Park, our two partners are Conservation Lower Zambezi and the Department of National Parks and Wildlife. They're a great group of people to work with. They're very credible organizations, and we're really glad to work with them because they've trusted us to support them to develop and implement these long-term training plans, offering training advice and assistance. So a lot of the advice that we as Resolve are offering establish things like establishing strategic steering groups, governance, policy, officer training, the raising of specialized operations groups that Adamson is part of, and which the K9 unit is part of, and which we're all here to hear about today. But equally important are the softer skills and the other pillars of conservation, like community engagement, environmental education, cadet programs, connectivity to other parks, and monitoring and evaluation. So the K9 unit that we have in the Lower Zambezi only forms a small component of the broad picture that we're looking at. And yeah, so I think from the onset, we just got to remember that there's a whole holistic approach to this, and that the dog unit, K9 unit, and the puppy program are essential, but small parts of a much bigger system.
Absolutely. And I think it's really great that we have Adamson here, because he represents, really, he has experience both with CLZ and with the Department of National Parks and in the community. So I think, why don't we hear about Adamson? How do you fit into all this? How did you come to conservation? Why don't you talk to us about what your perspective is on this work and how you came to dog training for conservation?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. To start with, let me just tell about my story. And I was grown up in a village near National Parks, eastern part of Zambia, and specifically I grown up with my grandfather, who used to keep dogs for hunting. I can say poaching. So for me, because of the love of the dogs, I decided to move away from my father's house and move to my grandfather because of the love of the dogs. And my grandfather had the advantage of me because I had a lot of interest in dogs. So it was my responsibility to feed the dogs, to make sure that all the dogs are okay. So then also my grandfather taught me how to hunt with the dogs, specifically for dogs, and also taught me how to select the dogs when you're going for hunting. So in that time when I was young, I just knew that dogs, we can only use them for hunting wildlife. And we were surviving in that, and that was the life which I knew at that time. The very interesting thing, which the way we are selecting dogs for hunting, it's like we are choosing dogs which have got high speed. They are dogs which normally run faster, especially we are looking at the foot. So if we have someone who's having a dog which has got a small foot, we are thinking, and that's what we are believing, that it runs very fast. And also we wanted a heavy dog, like a dog which is able to fight with like, for example, fight with a warthog, fight with a bush pig, such dogs. So we wanted like dogs like with a big body. So we are like choosing small body dogs and big body dogs, and then we go for hunting. And that's the life which I was doing. Then later on, when I was growing up, I heard about conservation, like people conserving wildlife, and my lot of ideas, lot of people were talking about conservation, and I learned that conservation is good, instead of killing animals, but also we need to conserve these animals. Then later on, I had to move away from hunting, like poaching, move away from poaching, and join the group who are conserving wildlife. And I joined the group in 2018. I was because I wanted the job. I wanted to conserve wildlife now instead of destroying wildlife, but to conserve. I joined the group. I went for training 2008. I joined as a village scout at Chiawa Community Resource Board. I did field work from 2008 up to 2016 when the advert came about a dog unit. So it was a good thing for me, and I was very happy that to see those dogs, which are the dogs which I knew that is only we can only use them to chase animals, but we can also use dogs to protect animals. So I applied, and I was accepted, and we did training with the CLZ K9. That was Jay and Mike, and I came I was part of the team out of 13 or 14 members. I was one of 4 members who was selected to be part of K9 unit. And we did training for 3 months. 5th August 2016, we graduated as a handler. Me, I graduated as a primary handler for bar. And it was a good thing because I worked hard, and also like the ability, like the heart which I have, the passion which I have for the dogs started starting from when I was young. It helped me a lot because I was putting more effort so that I can work with the dogs. The dogs which I was working with in the village, now they are different dogs from Holland. It was something great. And it was difficult at first seeing big dogs because I was used to seeing small dogs which we are using those days, but seeing big dogs with a lot of energy, with a lot of power, they can even pull you if you're not strong. And I was enjoying, but it was challenging. But because of we had in that training, we had like a lot of fitness. We are trained to be fit. Because the dogs can run, also the dogs can have good power. You need to be fit every time because like the job as a dog handler is always active. You need to be active and strong. So I enjoyed it, not until we started our operations, and for me, later on, I was considered as a head trainer for K9 because of the hard work which I was doing, but also because of the passion which I have for the dogs. And from that time, I think I've enjoyed a lot. I'm enjoying working with dogs every time. The good part of it, very interesting, is working with dogs, not boring. It's something which is very interesting because every time, every day, whenever you are, especially when you are doing trainings, you learn something from the dogs. And also you can see with the coordination, the way you feel like, sometimes for me, I feel like a dog, I can talk to him like the way I talk with a human, but we talk with signs. Sometimes we talk with I think it commands. It's work like that. For example, the dog which I was using, Eba, he was best friend for me because sometimes I was feeling that I'm well protected. He was always, when I'm talking to somebody, was maybe at the checkpoint, he was always looking at me, and also maybe sometimes coming at the middle of us. That is very good. Like being a friend for him. So working with dogs up to now, I think I've enjoyed a lot, and also with this introduction of the puppies, so I've learned a lot. I'm learning a lot about dogs. So doing the puppies is also interesting to me because these are the dogs which I was using when I was young, and I was using these dogs for chasing animals, but now I need to use these dogs to protect animals. So that's a good thing. And also, as like they have the, like here in Lower Zambezi, it's hot here. And these dogs, I think they are capable to do that. They have got a natural adaptation to this environment, and also other diseases which are here. I think they are able to do it. They're able to cope up with the weather, cope up with the heat. So I think that's a good thing. So that's all about me. Currently, I'm working under Department of National Parks and attached to K9 Unit, Conservation Lower Zambezi, as a head trainer. That's a good thing about it. And also, I'm very much happy working with the Conservation Lower Zambezi. Thank you.
Wow, what an inspiring story. How you were, your love of dogs led you to this, and the sort of generational change that that your life shows toward conservation. That's really lovely. And so you touched on at the end about how these village dogs may be better adapted to what you're doing. So why don't we back up a little bit and talk about the aims of the K9 unit first, so people understand where that came from, and then talk about why we're trying to do this pilot project about village dogs. Mike, do you want to some background on the K9 unit?
Yeah, so the K9 unit was first started in the Lower Zambezi in 2016, and it started with the introduction of 2 dogs from that we got procured from trusted vendors in Holland. They were both German Shepherds, Ligo and Bar, and when they arrived in Zambia is when the selection process for the handlers happened, and it all happened simultaneously. So handlers and dogs were training alongside each other, and the program was about 4 months long, and we're basically training 2 main capabilities: tracking and detection. So tracking is basically looking for human scent on the ground and following that scent from where you find it, and hopefully catching up to the poachers at the end of it, where the team would make an arrest. And then the other capability that we have trained is detection. So we have various scenarios that you can use the detection in. So we do open area searches that would typically happen around the carcass of, say, an elephant. If a carcass had been discovered, then we'd be looking for evidence or something like that. We use the dogs a lot at vehicle checkpoints, and would be typically looking for firearms and ammunition to try and get ahead of the poachers before they're able to bring those things into the park to commit their crimes. And then we also look for wildlife products. So the dogs are trained to look for bushmeat, and that's, you know, the full spectrum of all the species of animals that we get in the Lower Zambezi, and ivory, rhino horn, skins for predators, mostly lion and leopard, that are high commodities, and pangolin scales as well, which is, you know, traded very heavily. So those are the capabilities that the dogs had, and they have been really, really successful. Since 2016, we had, unfortunately, one of the original dogs poisoned, and he was working at a checkpoint. Well, it's presumed to have been killed by poisoning, and it might have been a deliberate action by the poachers to try and cause problems for the unit. And the other dog from that originally came to the Lower Zambezi was retired in December last year. So he's gone to a very good home and living a very comfortable life, and deserving of all of the rest that he now has at the end. The K9 unit was expanded in about 2019 with an additional 2 dogs. They were also procured from Holland, and they're 2 Belgian Malinois. And those 2 dogs have been working since and also have the same capabilities, so tracking and detection. The challenge that we have with the European dogs, or the dogs that come from Holland, is that the Lower Zambezi environment is extremely hot. It can get as hot as, most days during October, November, December can be in excess of 40 degrees centigrade. So I'm not sure what the conversion is into Fahrenheit, but I guess it's probably over 100. And then another major problem that we face in the Lower Zambezi is that actually in most national parks is that they're normally situated in areas where there is the presence of tsetse fly. And the reason parks are situated in these areas where tsetse fly are is because domestic livestock can't survive there. The tsetse fly carries a disease called trips, and it's fatal to domestic livestock, so it kills them. And that means that beef ranching and that sort of stuff can't be an activity in those areas. But because of the heat and stuff, those areas are also typically not suitable for agriculture either. So those are the sort of conditions that most national parks are faced with. And so the idea is to use local village dogs, because there's this idea that they're able to probably have a bit better immunity to trips than the foreign dogs would, having been brought up and raised in environments close to the national parks. But they also probably have an ability to tolerate the heat a lot better than the foreign dogs. They're also a lot smaller, so we would expect that a smaller dog would have much better endurance on a long track. And some of the tracks that these dogs are doing can be as far as 30 kilometers, which again, sorry, I'd have to convert into miles for the American viewers, but it's probably in the our longest track to date in the Lower Zambezi is about 20 miles, I'd say, and so they're covering huge distances, and they need to have tolerance to heat. So that's the sort of idea of the village dogs and why we tried to use them. But I think also something that Adamson has already touched on is that the dogs that we had originally procured from Holland are quite big, intimidating shepherds and Malinois that a lot of the local handlers were afraid to handle. So because the village dogs are brought up in the same environment that a lot of the handlers came from, they feel a lot more comfortable handling the village dogs than they would a foreign dog. They also have a good disposition and natural tracking ability, and psychologically for the locals in the areas where the dogs are working, the impact isn't as hectic as one of these Malinois wandering around in a bus. So there's a lot of good reason why the village dog project has been attempted, and I think only time is going to tell whether it's really a worthwhile effort or not. At this stage, we're only 7 months into the village dog program, and the puppies they've grown quite a lot. We've got 2, and although they already sort of big dogs, we can't make fair comparison with the foreign dogs at this stage. So yeah.
Wow, that perfect. Thank you. So why don't we talk about a little bit about the selection process of the village dogs? So talk about kind of what you were looking for. I mean, obviously, besides the sort of generic breed and what you've seen with them to date, how did you guys choose the right candidate for the puppies?
It was a really challenging activity, to be honest. But basically what we're looking for initially is just a healthy dog. So the context here is very different than what I imagine most people would be used to. The dogs live in areas that are where people don't have, they don't give the dogs a lot of care, and the dogs are pretty much abandoned in the villages, and there's no control over the breeding or how the dogs move around and interact with each other. So finding puppies initially we thought was going to be quite challenging, but they were widespread. And I think over the duration of 2 days that we were running the selection, we assessed probably in the region of 50 puppies to get to the 2 that we wanted. So initially, like I said, we were just looking for a healthy dog. A lot of the dogs are just abandoned out in wood piles, and they're eating scraps, and there's disease, and the parents are not always around, so they don't get the nutrition that they need. And there's a big tick load in some areas, so a lot of the dogs are just covered in ticks, and all those sort of challenges. So I think the first thing was looking for a healthy, energetic dog. The second thing was trying to find dogs that were in the right age group, and we were looking for dogs that were around 8 to 9 weeks old. And that was a challenge in itself, because a lot of the people didn't know when the puppies were born because of the context of these dogs running around in the villages and mating, and people not really knowing whose dog is whose, and so on and so forth. So it was quite difficult to gauge or judge the age of the dogs. We'd ask the owners of the dogs if they knew when they were born, and we'd often get a month, but that's already a 4-week variation. So trying to find the right age puppy was challenging, and we wanted to get them at that age because of it's like an important part of their development to take them at roughly 8 to 9 weeks. So they needed to have had a lot of interaction with the parents to get the nutrition that they needed, but we wanted to take them away before they became dependent on the parent too much. We also had to look at dogs that didn't have any fear or anxiety around people, and that was also a big challenge. Culturally as well, there's challenges there where the dogs aren't necessarily perceived as friends or pets, and they're not necessarily cared for, and there's not like a culture of living with dogs the way Westerners would. So trying to find a dog that that didn't have anxiety or fear around people was also important for us, because obviously these dogs are going to be working at checkpoints and in buses and around people and children and all that sort of stuff. So that was an important thing. And we found a lot of the places that we went that some of these dogs were just absolutely terrified of people and would try and avoid you at every opportunity to get out of the room that we were trying to test them in, and that sort of stuff. We also looked at their interest in engaging with people and engaging with toys. So we call it drive in the training world. And we're looking at dogs that had an interest to chase a ball, or have an interest in even eating. We'll take samples of cheese in there and offer it to the dogs and just see what their appetite was like and whether they had like, drive to get the food. And obviously that's important for us because we manipulate those drives to get the behaviors that we want for the tracking and detection in the later stage. We did little tests on their smelling. They're very crude tests. We'd basically hold a handful of food in one hand and no food in the other. And if the dog had the drive that we had initially been looking for, we'd present the hands. And if the dog scratched at the hand that had the food in, we recognize that, you've got a check in the box that the nose is working. And we'd swap the hands around and see if he had followed the hand with the food in. So it's a very crude test, but it did give us a very good indication of whether the dog would be able to smell, which is obviously critical to their work. We also looked for a little bit of trainability. So whether the dog would, learn quickly. And again, these are very crude tests that we did, on the spur of the moment type stuff. But just trying to manipulate the dog into a sit or a down using the food as well, and see how quickly they were able to, repeat those instructions and stuff. We checked how they interacted with other dogs as well. They're going to be working in the villages, and we wanted to, and we're obviously also going to take them back to the kennels where the dogs that we had procured from Holland were going to be. So we wanted to make sure that they were going to interact with the dogs in the kennel environment in a good way as well. And we didn't want dogs that were anxious of other dogs or that were aggressive to other dogs. So that was part of the test as well. And by the end of the selection process, I'll also just mention another, so at the end of this selection process, we landed up with 2 dogs, and one is named Sky, who's on your screens now, and then the other was named Smoke, and that's pretty much how we came to the selection of the 2, and
Wonderful, thank you. So we have a question in the chat. You talked about the kennels. So people are curious, how do they live? How do we take care of them every day? And what do they do when they're not tracking, when they're not doing their job?
Okay. I would say that of the kennels that I've been around, the kennels at CLZ are genuinely some of the best that I've personally come across. There's a lot of emphasis on protecting the dogs and keeping them safe, not only from wildlife, but like I mentioned earlier, the more successful they become, the more at risk they become from people attempting to perhaps poison them or injure them or do something to them so they become less effective. And so security around the kennels is it's not taken lightly. We have a very powerful electric fence around around the kennel environment, and then there's an open yard, and then the kennels themselves, the dogs will have an outdoor run and an indoor run, and then at night they lock down in the indoor run under lock and key, so that they have very, very limited access to them. And around the kennel yard, we brush away all the vegetation and stuff to that if anybody approaches the kennel, we'll be able to see tracks and know that there'd been an attempt. But also in our context, we have wildlife, and a huge risk to the dogs in the kennels is things like snakes. So these sort of things will sound perhaps silly, but we always turn the lights off in the kennel, and it's not at night unless we're working in there. But lights attract insects, insects attract frogs, and frogs attract snakes. So if you leave the light on, then you could have snakes in the kennels. And So we brush the outside of the kennels every day, sweep it, and in the mornings the handlers will go out and they'll check the perimeter fence and check that there's no snake tracks coming in or anything like that. But there are various securities to protect the dogs from wildlife and people that are trying to cause harm to the dogs.
Great. Yeah. So we got more questions about the selection process and how it's going. So and Adamson, feel free to jump in. Would you change anything about the selection process if you were going to do it again? With Sky and Smoke, the ones that you're working with now, are you seeing any limitations in what they can do compared to the old dogs, the imported dogs?
I think let me field this one.
Okay, sure.
So on that selection process, I'd say the one limitation which we didn't really anticipate was the perception of the communities where we're getting the dogs from. So initially we went into the communities dressed in uniform and stuff, and we're met with quite a lot of friction. So I think if we were to do the selection process again, I think those frictions are because obviously they might be poaching in the villages and they see a uniform, and then they obviously don't want to help the cops that are basically catching all their friends. So there's that perception, but people don't want to be seen to necessarily be helping law enforcement. So there was like a bit of resistance to people showing us the dogs that they had, if they did have dogs. And there's, I guess, a lot of people are probably questioning why we were looking for dogs. So I assume that a lot of them thought that we were trying to find, we had the assumption that anybody who had a dog was poaching with it, and that we were trying to go into the villages and find out who all the poachers were. So there was a lot of friction around that. And after midway through the first day, I think we realized that there was this complexity, and we changed into less formal gear and went in civilian clothes, and we had a much better response from the communities and stuff. So not necessarily dog related in terms of the selection process, but definitely the way that the communities were approached, I would say was one limitation in the process, and something that going forward I would change again. But I think had we learned that lesson earlier, we probably would have been exposed to a lot more dogs than we were shown, and we'd have a much larger pool of dogs to select from. So yeah, and I don't know if you have anything to add, Adam.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me just add on the question of the limitation, what these dogs can do according to question. So I think for these dogs, like the village dogs, maybe I can just say when the energy and also the capability to chase the Kong, the drive. So the drive is a little bit different with the big dogs from Europe. So that's one thing which we need to work on. But all other things, I think they are able to do it. It's only the drive, but I think as time goes on, they will pick it up.
Really interesting. Okay. So going back to the sort of village hesitation for people to kind of cooperate with the dog selection process, Adamson, because you came from, raising and taking care of dogs for hunting, and then kind of segued into conservation, how did you get over that? Did you ever feel that hesitancy or that kind of suspicion, or how did you get over it to start moving into conservation and not be suspicious like the people who were maybe not cooperating as much with the village dog selection?
Yeah, thank you very much. I can say like life in the village with the dogs is something else which we feel when you are using a lot of dogs. You're using dogs to go for and watching, or maybe sometimes even just for security. You are not comfortable seeing wildlife officers or people who are supporting wildlife close to you. You feel that they want to see what we are doing, or maybe just investigate. So it is very difficult always in the village, especially like adults. So for young ones, it's very easy. So you will see that by the time we are selecting these puppies, we could get information from small boys or small girls. You find that adults, those who are keeping dogs, but they are using dogs for other things, they prefer to keep quiet and completely deny that they don't have dogs, not even puppies. So it's something which is, as me as growing up in the village, I feel I also, if you don't understand clearly how important is the dogs are to protect wildlife, you feel that these people are up to something else, not about like buying dogs for special things. No. So it is always them thinking that I can't expose my dogs, because once I tell them that I have puppies, today they might buy a puppy from me, but tomorrow something else will come. They will have a suspicion that this guy, why is he keeping the dogs? I think the dog is using it for something else. So in the village, they always run away. But there are other people, like people who have seen K9 unit working. K9 unit working, they normally know that the dogs are important, and they want these dogs to be used for unpoaching, but not many of them. It's always very difficult, but only those who are working. You find that others, they normally cooperate and they show us where the dogs are. But mainly, if you see an adult showing you the puppies, which means it's not his puppies, somebody's puppies, you say, no, someone is having the puppies. That's how we are getting there. And for sure, we find the puppies. When you're already there, the owner is there, has got nothing to do now apart from accepting us to see the puppies. And at the end, you find that he also smiles that we have a puppy, and he sees that we are not after anything else but only seeing the puppies. That's what I can say on puppy selection or village dog selection.
Very interesting. See, that these programs are always so wonderful with what they teach us kind of about communities and reaching out to people. So that's really interesting. Thank you. Another question in the chat, someone's asking, what stage in the training are these puppies, are Sky and Smoke? Have they gone out on as maybe little apprentices on patrol, or are we still working on the training and things like that? How's it going?
So I actually think Adamson is best placed to field this question. He's been developing the puppies pretty much single-handedly. We chat over the phone often, and we share advice and that sort of stuff. But Adam, you best placed to talk about what the puppies are able to detect and the sort of distances that they're tracking at the moment. So yeah, over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I think let me start to say that the project is promising. The puppies are promising that we are moving in the right direction. Currently, I can say currently on a tracking, they're able to track 3 kilometers track. They can track 3 kilometers, and also at the age of 1 hour 15 minutes. 1 hour 15 minutes. If somebody walks 1 hour 15 minutes, and on the grass, even on the bare land, the dogs, they are able to track without any struggling. Without struggling, they will track well. And also the good part of them tracking, like they don't panic when tracking. It's like for them, it's a natural way of life, tracking. So they don't panic, they just move. The only thing, a handler should be strong following. So they don't panic, and at the end of the track, you find that they still have energy. They still have energy whereby when you are coming from tracking, they prefer to run than walking. You find that you also, like me, like tracking. Sometimes I feel, the track was short, but you can see we have tracked 3 kilometers. So that's a good thing about tracking them. That's the way we are now. It's promising in tracking, and we are moving in a light way. We are moving in the light way in terms of tracking. Then coming to detection now, we haven't gone far on detection. For the puppies now, they're able to indicate on ivory, they're able to indicate on ammunition, they're also able to indicate on pangolin. And that's the way forward. And I can say I'm very much happy, like the performance, the way they are performing, because from ammunition is very difficult to find, especially when you are just training like now. It's very difficult, but they're responding well. You find that you have been doing ammunition, then you change the target, you do pangolin, they respond the same. So it's promising. Detection, I can say we are in 3 samples now, and also tracking 3 kilometers, and age for tracking 1 hour 15. That's good. We are moving in a right track.
Wow, that is, in the short few months that you guys have been working, that is incredible progress. Thank you. So go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, if I could jump in. I think, one of the interests, like we said at the beginning, was to try and figure out whether these dogs would have better resilience to the heat and that sort of stuff. And we mentioned also that it's probably a bit too early in the process to establish whether there's a real difference, because we're not really comparing apples with apples here. But anecdotally, the dogs are performing really, really well. So at the end of a track, we do take the dogs' temperatures in Fahrenheit. So I'm lucky, yeah. But typically the foreign dogs would reach temperatures of about 105 degrees, and then we have to stop them tracking. But these little puppies are doing similar distances in the same temperatures, and their body temperatures are only getting up to the 102, 103 mark, which would give early suggestion that they probably do have a lot more tolerance to the heat than we gave them credit to, that we give them credit for. And there's other advantages to that as well. It seems that these little puppies drink less water than some of the bigger dogs. And obviously, again, we're not comparing apples with apples, but what that means for the handler is that he has to carry less weight, because he has to carry less water for the dog. So there are some early indications that they are performing to the same level, if not better than the other dogs are. So yeah, promising.
That's very promising. That's very cool. We got a really interesting question in the chat that I think you guys are going to like. So shout out to some Dallas zookeepers who are here. they just had a baby hippo at their zoo who they named after one of the K9 Unit dogs, Kahlo. So yay. They read that Kahlo sniffed out a poacher and had several pounds of hippo meat. So have either of you worked with Kahlo? And if so, can you talk about him?
Carlo, so yeah, we've heard about the hippo called Carlo, and shout out to guys from the Dallas Zoo as well. But Carlo is a magic dog. That's him. He is one of my favorite dogs. And the reason being, he's got the most incredible character. During his training initially, I can't tell you how many times we all stood together laughing at him in a group because of the stuff that you would get up to. So he's an amazing dog. He's got incredible character, and he really knows how to turn on and off. So meaning that, like, he when it's time to work, he is absolutely focused and dedicated to the task. But he's also got the most incredible demeanor when he's not working. And he's been incredible with the village pups as well. So he's super tolerant of them. And in the kennel environment, we give the puppies a lot of exposure to the other dogs, and their favorite is Carlo as well. They really get on very well, and Carlo is a great mentor to the puppies. And yeah, he's just a magic dog, and he's had an incredible amount of success in his working life. He's one of the tasks that he's used for specifically is off-leash tracking, which is a capability that we don't normally train, because obviously if the dog gets too far out ahead of the handlers, he's at risk if he does encounter the poachers on his own. And the other dogs have a tendency to sort of get away from the handlers a bit, but Carlo's very calm, and he's just taken to off-leash tracking like a champ. So he doesn't run out too far ahead, but he stays committed to the task, and we've had a lot of success with him using that capability. Yeah, so he's an absolutely magic dog, and I think the hippo is lucky to be named after him.
Yeah, can I add something on Carlo?
Yes, please.
Yes, so like what Michael said about Carlo. So Carlo is a dog which when you are with him, you always laugh, even if you are tired. So during training with the Carlo and Hammer, when we see that you are tired, get Carlo for on work, and everyone will be laughing. So he works like
Uh-oh. I think he froze.
Yeah, I think he's having challenges.
he has got a high drive. He's very calm. Yeah, you can't understand him. He's very calm, and also he has got a very good balance in terms of the Kong. So he's not like the dog who just wants the Kong, no, but he wants the Kong, and also he balances it with the work. So like I can say he's well balanced in terms of detection and the tracking, and also at the same time he'll make you laugh and also make you think every time we have a good time with him. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I think everyone here loves dogs, so that is wonderful to hear. Another Dallas zookeeper chimed in and said that Kahlo the hippo is very much full of personality and is for sure a character. So I think she probably takes after Kahlo the dog, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
So I know we're hitting the 9 o'clock hour for everyone on the West Coast of the United States, but if you all want to stay, there's a few more questions in the chat. We've had a lot of interest from other conservation organizations about this village dog project. What would you tell them? Because I know that we're still pretty early.
I think, like you've said, it's still very early stages and probably too soon to give finite answers. But at this stage, I'd say that we definitely on track, and I'd recommend it. I think early indications are all positive, and I think if you get the procurement and the development right, there's no reason why village dogs couldn't do well. And I think it's utilizing a local resource. They're cheap to procure, they're widespread, they seem to have this resilience to all these problems. They're comfortable for handlers to work with. There's so many advantages to it. I can't see why it's not why it isn't more common at this stage. I think there's always been concerns about the trainability of them, and I think the early indications on these puppies is that they're very trainable. And yeah, so I'd say I'd urge people to look into it a bit more, and yeah.
Wonderful. So I know we've mentioned it at the outset, and in your video you acknowledged it, but through IEF, one of the long-term funders of this work and almost the impetus of this work is Joe and Trisha Berry of the Berry Family Trust. And Trisha's here with us today and has a question in the chat. She'd like to know how the pups sleep. Do they sleep in the same kennel? Do the dogs ever share kennels together? And do the handlers or rangers ever sleep near the dogs at night? Are there ever circumstances where you kind of have to babysit them at night?
Okay,
Adam?
thank you. Thank you. That's a very interesting question. So for now, I can say the puppies, they sleep separately. They have Sky has got her own kennel. Also Smoke has got his own kennel. So they sleep separately. In terms of sleeping near the puppies, yes, at first when we brought them from the village, brought them to Conservation Lower Zambezi, we had to sleep near them because we wanted to control the noise. And also we managed to do that. They were making a lot of noise. They because it was a different environment, like them sleeping in the cage. It was a different thing for them. So we had to sleep with them. Like the main issue was taking them out regularly. Like you take them out to keep them busy, to keep their mind busy. But as time goes on, we changed. Instead of sleeping maybe 5 meters away from them, we started sleeping 30 meters away from them. Which means they are still able to smell you, but at least there's a distance. Then later when we started to sleep 50 meters away from them, then we decided to bring them in the kennel. At first, we slept with them for 2 days, and then later on leave them like that. Then they are okay. They just sleep. They are very much comfortable. Yeah, in terms of them being together, we don't allow them to sleep together because of their working dogs. We don't want them to play a lot. So we prefer as working dogs, we prefer that they should find that play drive with the handler than playing themselves. So we are trying by all means to avoid them play together. But sometimes we normally let them maybe see each other, maybe come closer to each other, maybe just a little play, maybe for 5 minutes. Then they are done, just to make them like that interaction with them, so that they think they normally, dogs, they normally weigh each other. They know this is the boss, this is what. So they live such life. So that's how it is for now. So they are sleep comfortable. We sleep for now. We sleep far away from them, and They don't sleep together, but they are very much comfortable. No noise in the kennel. It's quiet over time.
Very nice. Thank you for that thorough process. I think people find that really interesting. Well, we are definitely over time, but I know everyone's very interested. Julie, what do you think?
I think it was such an incredible presentation. I just love learning all of this, and it was so interesting. And I'm just thrilled to hear about the Dallas Zoo naming their hippo after Callow. I actually didn't know that. So shout out to everybody here from the Dallas Zoo. Thank you so much. Also, this work has just been incredible. And as Sarah mentioned, we've had our long-term supporter, Tricia Berry is on the line. And if you would like to join Tricia and help maybe support this work, this is a project that we would, love to have some more donations for. You can always do that. We have links on our website. And also, if you would like to have a copy of this recording, please email me directly. My email was in the chat, but I'm going to put it in there again before we sign off. Please email me and I'll be, what's that?
One more thing. So before we finish, Mike, you had sent us that elephant video, the shark. Can you set that up and we will play that as sort of like a last sort of looks, and then you can maybe comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have it, or?
I have it, yes.
Yeah, so if you could stream it, and then we'll answer questions.
Great.
Hey! 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 We are everyone close. Everyone close. Don't run. Come close to me. Hey! Don't run. Everybody come close. Okay?
All right. So
That's wonderful.
maybe you want to give the context of that.
Yeah, so a bit of context. It was obviously getting late in the evening, and we're trying to catch up to some poachers, and yeah, time was running out. It was getting dark, so we were on track, following the dog, and you can see the handler's like really aware of his surroundings, and he spots the elephant quite early on, and he gives the indication in the bush there. Our indication for an elephant, sorry, is to put your hand on your head and wave your elbow, and that obviously let the rest of the team know that there was an elephant about. The elephant didn't take too kindly to us, and gave us a charge. And I think everyone's natural instinct under those conditions is to try and run. But best thing in that circumstance was to, hold our ground and stick together as a group. And the elephants, stopped the charge, and the situation ended nicely. But we took the opportunity to give the dog water and stuff. But I think the screaming obviously gave away our position, and yeah, we had to skirt around the elephant to get back on track. And I can't actually remember what happened at the end, if it was successful or not, but yeah, it was it's just like an emphasis that, you know, the dangers that the likes of Adamson face on a daily basis is just incredible. It's not always from the poachers, but we work in an environment where, you know, like there's a lot of wild animals around, elephants, buffalo, lion, and yeah, hats off to those guys for the work that they do. It really is putting your body on the line sometimes, and all these guys do it without batting an eyelid, and you know, they deserve a lot of respect, and yeah, I guess thanks from everyone for the great work.
Incredible.
Yes, thank you so much. And as we close out today, I would like to invite everybody on the line to maybe turn their cameras on, and let's give Mike and Adamson a really great round of applause, thanking them for this incredible presentation. It was really wonderful.
Thank you guys so much. I know that I found everything you said incredibly fascinating. I have such an appreciation for what you do, and I know everyone here appreciates what you guys do every day for elephants and the dogs and wildlife in general and habitat. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and from our side, you know, obviously a massive thank you to International Elephant Foundation and Tricia and Joe Berry for, you know, all of the contributions and all the support along the way, and for, I guess, having the bravery to support a program like this and to you know, see it through as well. We really appreciate it, and it would never have been possible without you guys. And yeah, just from the bottom of our hearts, extremely grateful. And yeah, we hope that we can do the program justice, and that these little puppies start having success. And I can't wait to see, you know, myself personally can't wait to see what they do get up to in their futures. So thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone, have a great day. We will have a recording of this that Julie will send out to everyone. Adamson, Mike, thanks again for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. And IEF is just honored to be able to support you. It's our privilege and honor. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We really appreciate for the support, and also we are saying thank you for believing in us in terms of village dogs, this project. Thank you very much for believing on us, and we are promising you that we'll put effort and see what will come in future, and just believe in us and support us. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Thank you.